Hello, everyone. You're listening to the Mental Insights podcast. This is your host, Brennan Catuli, and we're here today for episode number 7 with Carly, aka Misfits Carls on Instagram. And to give a little brief introduction about her, she is a coach, bodybuilder, and is facing sobriety right now. So we have many topics to cover today, and why don't you just introduce yourself, tell a little bit more about what you do, and then we'll hop right into the interview.
Thank you, Brandon. My name is Carly. Like you said, I'm a coach, a bodybuilder, and I am sober. So I coach people currently that also are doing bodybuilding competitions. I also coach people who just want to build an overall better lifestyle. A lot of the coaching I do focuses on a lot more than just physical training. So we focus on a lot of mental training as well. I do that in person and online. And then I also do life coaching. So coaching on a lot of different aspects. Myself, I am a competitive bodybuilder this year and I'm shooting for my pro card. So if all goes well, that will happen. And
Awesome.
at this point, I honestly, I don't count the days, but I'm somewhere around 4 months sober. So
That's awesome. Congratulations. That's so great to hear.
thank you.
And I think, the aspects that you're doing, physical and mental training, is so important. I think that definitely gets overlooked. And I think that's great that you guys continue that avenue, because the mental aspect of life in itself and mental health is not very valued, which is certainly very important. So to really start off, we can talk about the transition of, how you've become to develop yourself. But first, I just want to ask, how have alcohol and drugs played a role in your life? And you can speak about whether it's the development or the perspective change, any different avenue that you want to speak about that.
Okay. Alcohol and drugs. Wow. It started for me around age 13. I started with alcohol, and then I started bodybuilding actually when I was 14. So I quickly went from alcohol to drugs because drinking all the time, adds more calories. You're hungover. You kind of feel like crap. You can't drink and go do things and go to the gym. So I was like, okay, I can do drugs and still have this lifestyle that I'm building. So alcohol was never as big of a problem for me. Drugs became a lot more of the problem. And then as I got older, I struggled a lot more with sex addiction, actually. Um, so a lot of people go to, I know, AA meetings, which I was going to for a while. I now have found SLAA meetings, which is Sex and Love Addicts Anonymous. So for any of you guys listening, yes, those are a thing. I just found out about those myself, and they're very helpful. But going back, so drugs started for me pretty early and just kind of progressed over time because I never really took the time to think on why I was doing drugs. I grew up in a very small town. Everyone just kind of did that. And, you are who you surround yourself with. I surrounded myself with that kind of crowd because it made me feel accepted. I found a group of people, I was super weird. And so when I did drugs with all these people, it's like no one cares about how weird you are. So I started there, and then when I moved off to college, things got a little bit worse for me. I was in a new place on my own. The stress of college itself, I absolutely hated college. I didn't want to be there. And I coped with drugs and with sex. And again, I just never really took the time to think on why I was doing those things until sobriety, which kind of forces you to do that. And it got to the point where I was just cycling and having these ups and downs and ups and downs. And every year I was not really progressing. I was kind of in the same place I was as the year before. And then it got to the point where I actually had dropped out of school and started my own business. And I was noticing that I was going downhill again. I was sleeping around more. I was starting to do more drugs. And I was just like, I can't let myself fail this time. I have a lot more on the line here. I have my business that I'm growing. I don't have school as a safety net anymore. I need to do something. And the guy that I'm actually dating now, but I wasn't back then, he had gone sober, and I saw his journey, and it made me realize, yeah, I think that's the next step for me. So I walked into an AA meeting for the first time, and just the wave of denial left me. For the first time I walked in there and I was like, these are my people. you know, like I didn't go through the whole like DUI, homeless, struggle, anything like that. But I walked in there, and even though, you know, not everyone has the same story, but we all have similar mindsets. And that's what made me feel like I belonged. And like, I was like, yeah, I definitely have more of a problem than I let myself feed into.
Thank you for sharing that. That's definitely it. You touched on a lot of topics that I think are very important. And, you know, to speak about that change in how you were able to see yourself, I think is so important. And as you were speaking about that, you were talking about how you were inspired to get sober and just kind of that wake up call. So to lean more into that, when you did realize you were sober, that you wanted to be, what was kind of your mindset and kind of perspective change that allowed you to see the positive future that you could have?
Um, I mean, I would say, realistically speaking, I still doubt myself all the time, but it's a different kind of doubt, you know, because when you doubt yourself and you're not sober, you just mask it with drugs and sex and alcohol. But now I doubt myself, and I know I have my higher power to turn to all these things. So I still do, but the mindset change that happened in that moment was I knew I had a problem. That was the thing, because I wasn't someone that ever went out and like partied all the time. I definitely had that phase, but the majority of it for me, especially struggling more with sex addiction, you know, you don't go out to parties and sleep with people. I didn't, at least. Is I would like sit in my room at my house and just ecstasy was my drug of choice. Just pop pills and just get fucked up and sit in my room and just call a bunch of different guys over. And I did this because I knew I had a problem. I didn't want to go out with my friends and, you know, take 5, 6, 7, 8, just more pills on pills on pills, because my friends, they'd take like 1 or 2, you know. I didn't want them to see that I had more of a problem than I let them see. So when I went into the meeting and I heard people talking and sharing their stories, and I was like, okay, you know, it's okay to be where I'm at, because there's hope that it can be better. And just hearing the people in those rooms share and speak, like, it really changed my life in such a good way. And the funny thing is, I wasn't even planning on going to that meeting that day. The guy who had led me into those rooms, he was celebrating his 1 year of sobriety. And I was just like, yeah, sure, I'll go. I'll be supportive, whatever, you know. And I went, and I didn't realize how much it was going to change my life by being there. Like, had I not gone to that meeting, like, I don't know, because I probably never would have chosen to go on one on my own. I didn't want to admit that I had a problem, but once I was in there, I realized it's okay that I have a problem, because I know that there's hope for something better. And I never had thought that about myself and my life before. You know, my brother also struggles with addiction. A lot of my friends do. I kind of was just like, okay, this is just life for me. You know, I'm from a small town. That's what people do. That's the way my life is going to go. I didn't really know anything else.
Definitely. I think that you spoke on some great parts about how you were able to see things differently within your behavior and how you're going through that. And it's awesome that sit down of someone sharing their story is so impactful for people. And that's why I think, even like you said, if you aren't struggling with, you know, alcohol abuse or drug abuse, AA can still provide a opportunity to hear someone's story that you have hope for the future, which I think is great. And I think we can then turn this into more of what you said you were facing more of, was sex addiction. And why don't you speak about some of the resources about the meetings that you go to now, for those listening, because it's definitely, like you were saying, a small community that's definitely growing.
Yeah. I mean, I know some people that I've talked to, at least, are like, oh, I knew about sex addict meetings before I knew about Alcoholic Anonymous meetings. And I was like, I sure as hell didn't. So I know it's something that's not as talked about. But, you know, like, I feel like a lot of people just think like, oh, I'm just like a horny person. Oh, I just really like sex. But I don't think it necessarily comes down to what you're doing, you know, because sex is a part of life. It's a little bit different than drugs and alcohol. It's not like you can just get rid of it. It's finding a healthier way to go about it. And I would say that's true of drugs and alcohol too. It's not the drugs or the alcohol. It's not the sex. It's why you're doing it. You know, what's your purpose behind it? Are you using it in a healthy way? Or are you using that to avoid, you know, like when you go out and drink, regardless of how often you're drinking, what's the reason behind the drinking? You know, when you go out and sleep with someone, what's the reason behind it? And I definitely wasn't going about it in a healthy way whatsoever. And the SLAA meetings, which is Sex and Love Addicts Anonymous, kind of help you to understand that and realize that you're really just avoiding feeling overall. And you're trying to mask that with something and cope with something, because for me, that's what the sex was. It was avoidance of whatever else was going on in my life. So in those meetings, similar to AA or NA, they have the 12-step program. You go through it with the sponsor, and it really just helps you to do that introspective work, dive deeper into yourself, why you're doing those things, and how you can go about having a healthier relationship with sex. Because sobriety for sex addicts, it's like, you know, at some point you hope to find a partner, find someone you can share a healthy sexual relationship with. So it's helping you get to that point of understanding really what healthy sex means to you, what your boundaries are with things, and how to go about having that relationship, having a loving relationship in a healthy way without being codependent, without making it all about the sex, with really just diving, like I said, deep enough within yourself to realize those things first.
Wonderful. Thank you for that. And it's interesting to see because a lot of the kind of main themes behind alcohol abuse, drug abuse, or sex addiction is kind of that coping mechanism. It's that escape that everybody always seeks out, which is, it's very interesting because a lot of times you can't see tendencies of someone who's, abusing or something because they do shy away. Like you were saying, they like to be alone, or whether it's in a place with only a few people. And I think, as you've experienced it, what kind of are some tendencies that you've just have noticed within yourself, whether it's now that you're sober, is there new things, new habits coming out of you, or what kind of that change and mentality has gone throughout not only your mind, but your body?
I would say now, like, I'm definitely more aware of things. Um, it's kind of taking that consistent inventory, which I believe is step 10, is like consistently taking that inventory within yourself of your actions and what you're doing. And it just helps to bring this level of awareness that before you don't really have, because you kind of just like mindlessly do things. And a lot of it comes down to just being honest with yourself. You know, now I am honest with myself about, like, okay, I did have a problem. You know, when I was hitting up guys all the time to sleep with them, like, hell no, I wasn't going about it in a healthy way. Like, I was one of those people, like, you'll justify. If you find yourself having to justify something, it's probably something you shouldn't be doing. You know, if you have to sit there and question and have this like inner battle with yourself and justify reasons as to why you should be doing it, you probably shouldn't be doing it. And I found myself doing that a lot before. So now if I find myself justifying something again, I'm like, okay, this means I probably shouldn't do it. And I would say those like addictive tendencies honestly carry over into a lot of different things. Like I noticed with work, with food, with social media, with caffeine. There's a lot of different things that it can carry into. And so it's just having that awareness of paying attention to really just your actions and your mindset and the way you talk and the way you treat other people, and just having that awareness all the time, which takes a lot of work to get to that point. And it takes work every single day. You know, it's a never ending journey, but it does help you to just live your life to the fullest and not let those addictive tendencies essentially be the death of you. You know, figure out how you can use your own life and your own mindset to your advantage.
That's great. I think self-awareness is definitely one of the key components of starting to uncover a lot of, whether it's, mental health or any type of addiction problems. I think it helps so much in you becoming aware of just your thoughts, emotions, actions, and it's definitely a very big component in growing throughout your own life. And
Definitely.
it seems like the thing that you've been focusing on a lot is bodybuilding and coaching. So why don't you speak more about how bodybuilding has such a positive impact within your life right now?
Wow, bodybuilding is it's changed my life and it has saved my life more than once. Um, I started bodybuilding when I was 14, and that's about the time my drug problem started. And the thing is, I always tried to do both and have both, but I noticed that I was going in this up and down cycle. And then I started competing at age 17. I started competing at age 17, and that's when I slowed down a lot because I was competing. I'm setting bigger goals for myself at that point, and I started to really fall in love with bodybuilding because when I started competing, I was also bulimic for about 6 years, and that helped bring me out of my eating disorder. That helped show me a healthy relationship with food, a healthy way to train without overtraining, and it just helped build this mindset. That's what I really contribute bodybuilding to the most. It's like, yeah, you build a great physique, but at the end of the day, that's really not why I do it. It helps me become disciplined. It helps me build diligence. It helps me prove to myself that I'm capable of things I honestly never would have thought I'd be capable of. Like, I was so non-athletically inclined growing up, so when I did this and I started being good at it, I was like, oh shit, like I'm really capable of more than I think myself to be. And so I did my first couple of shows when I was 17, and then another one when I was 18. And then I started college and took a break. And that's when I started noticing things going downhill for me again. And when I got so low, a lot of different things in my life had happened. Um, I went through a breakup with a really toxic relationship. So that was like freedom in a sense, but it also broke me down a little bit. My sex addiction got worse. My drug addiction got worse. It got to the point where I contracted an STD, which made me more depressed. I was in college, more depressed because I didn't want to be there. And I got so low that I was like ready to die. And so I didn't care about how much drugs I was doing or how many guys I was sleeping with, even though I had an STD at that point. I was just like, I just don't care about myself anymore. And I took a step back and was like, holy shit, like I need to do something for myself or I am gonna die. And so I decided to compete again. And doing that competition, I did 2 more shows. This was last summer. It really helped pull me out of a really bad place. And then after those shows, it was good because it helped me a lot. But then I also realized, okay, this is helping me, but it's not helping anyone else. So that's when I decided to get back into coaching and training other people and doing all of that. So then not only was bodybuilding helping me in this lifestyle and this mindset that I was creating, but it was helping me to help other people, which I really liked. And at that point, that's when I dropped out of school to go full time with coaching. That's when I made the decision to go sober. And it was a lot on my plate at once. And so I knew the one thing that really always helped to ground me was bodybuilding. So I did a prep for another show, which was my most recent show in February. And that's the first show that I've ever won. Not only did I win like my class, but I won the entire show, which was really cool because for so long I tried to hold on to the good and the bad, the good and the bad. And then my first show, when I really just focused on the good, which sobriety had helped me to do, I actually ended up doing a lot better. And now I am competing, like I said, this summer to get my pro card. So it's like once you realize that you can't have both, you either focus on the good or the bad and you pick the good, it's like things just start to steadily go uphill. You don't have that up and down roller coaster anymore. And it's like, yeah, you have that in your thoughts and your emotions. And it's like life never really just gets easy all the time, but you begin to develop the tools on how to handle those things when they come.
That's awesome. It's incredible that bodybuilding can provide such a good platform within your physical and mental health, and it's obviously so important that it's, bringing out such a different perspective change for you, saying that let's focus on the good, not the bad, because I think that's so important, and I think that's what drags a lot of people down is if they only focus on the bad, that's a lot of why they continue their bad tendencies, their bad habits, and their negative thinking, which is definitely huge for a lot of people. And I think what you're speaking about within nutrition is having suffered through a eating disorder and then on top being a bodybuilder where you do have to focus on what you consume and so forth. How has really nutrition played a big impact within your life, and how are you able to focus on it now and being structured in terms of, what you consume, but as well treating your body right?
Nutrition, honestly, I say a lot of it comes down to educating yourself because when you know why you're doing something, you're more likely to stick to it. And this is something I've noticed being a coach. When I just give my clients a diet plan and I say, here, eat this, they'll stick to it, but they end up falling off. But if you teach them why and help them to understand, okay, eating this way is going to help promote fat loss because of this, this, and this. Eating this way is going to help you feel better because of this and this, and explain that to them, they want to stick to it more because they understand it. And I think there's so much power in that, because I noticed with my eating disorder, I wanted to be skinny. And the thing is, I started off at like 95 pounds. I was never fat to begin with, but I wanted to be skinnier. I've always had this extremist mindset. I needed to be the skinniest girl. And I was like, okay, if I train for 5 to 6 hours a day and eat a ton of food, because I still love food, and then just throw it all up, I'll get skinny. And that was my mindset. But once I started to actually learn and be like, okay, you can lose weight in a healthy way. And I saw that through experience, through bodybuilding. I started understanding things, and I realized the power there was in that. So nutrition is honestly my favorite part of things, because I continue to educate myself on that. Science is always changing and growing, and it's just so cool what nutrition can really do for you, not only in terms of building muscle and losing fat for bodybuilding, but in the way it makes you feel different. Like, first couple weeks with my clients, I'll always ask them how they feel. I don't just say, what do you look like? And they're like, oh my gosh, I have way more energy. My workouts feel better. I'm more awake throughout my day. I'm not lethargic all the time. Some people even are like, I have energy to have sex with my husband now, just like the littlest things. And it's like nutrition has such a big impact in not only your body, but in your mind and your emotions and just everything. Like, your mind and your gut are connected, and actually 95% of your serotonin is produced in the gut. Yep. And serotonin, that's that like happy neurotransmitter. So you'd think it's kind of important to make sure that you're taking care of your body, taking care of your health. What you put in your body creates the response that comes out of you.
I love all you said. I completely agree. And I like to touch on a few topics. One, obviously, definitely the link between your gut and mind is so important. There's a lot going around within microbiome testing, gut health. So it's definitely so important to focus on, because what you eat is how you think, how you act. It's definitely relevant. And I love the comparison that you made, how you speak with your clients about, how well did you do in terms of, looking more past in terms of the numbers, or in terms of, how they just think they look like. So you were trying to say that basically what they were doing is they're looking deeper into the puzzle. So when I was reading this book, Originals by Adam Grant, he did a great comparison in how parents actually teach their kids. So if they just teach their kids, oh, you fell down, you shouldn't just fall down, you shouldn't hurt the other child. But what they found out is it's more impactful if you tell them and explain them why first, instead of just saying why they shouldn't do something. And I think that correlates perfectly to what you were saying in terms of, they shouldn't just look at numbers. They shouldn't just look at, oh, why am I eating this? This is the diet plan that I should do because Carly gave it to me. But figuring out why they need to do that is so important. So I definitely think that's great. And, why don't you speak on the types of habits and routines that you've been able to use throughout even your bodybuilding, even through your mental health, through what you've been learning through your coaching and as you've become sober?
Habits that I've developed now is definitely prioritizing your health in terms of just exercise and nutrition, and the effect that that not only has on you physically but also mentally. And you don't have to do it to the extent of a bodybuilder. Go to the gym, get active, get moving. That's the most important thing. And just eat nutritious foods. So that's a good first step. And then also taking a step beyond that and working on yourself mentally. And that's something that I really started doing once I became sober, as my sponsor kind of just had me do it. And then I realized how powerful it is. So I spend a lot of time every day writing, self-reflecting, and I do a lot of video blogging actually, because when you think stuff, you have tons of thoughts that come and go all day long. You don't remember everything you think. So when you take that time to actually sit down, put pen to paper and write it out, it makes those thoughts real. You can actually see them, and it makes that introspective work be a little more powerful because of the fact that you actually physically see it. You're not just thinking it. That helps you to hit different realizations and hold you more accountable to things. And then I also said I do video blogging, so that's another example of as if you're doing that. It's like having a conversation with yourself, but then you can go back and listen to the conversation. So I'll literally just take a video on my phone talking to myself and then go back and listen to it. And it's cool to do, like, in a day. Let's say I'm super emotional, I'm super upset, I take a video blog, I talk to myself, or I do some writing, and then I can go back and look at that on a day when I'm in a better mindset. And it's so cool to be able to see the growth within yourself and be like, okay, I got through this. And then you can kind of understand your own emotions better in different circumstances in your life. And it's just growth in a different way.
That's awesome. I love that you do that because I've been experiencing that as well. I've been journaling and trying to just uncover my emotions and become aware of how I'm going through my days. And I love that you go back and look at it when you have a better mindset, because I like to do that as well. Go through my journal, see kind of what my mindset, what my goals were at this week or at this different month. So it's cool to see the way that your mind and your body progress throughout as you journal, as you do these videos. I think it's so important that you continue the growth within your life, because a lot of people today do not truly focus on themselves, and that's when they get lost in kind of these hazy patterns, these mental illnesses, these addictions that come up throughout people's lives. And before I go through for my last question that I like to ask my audience, if there's anything that you want to provide, whether it's a lesson or experience, share that with my audience now. Any tips or anything that you want to share as a final farewell?
One piece of advice. I got a couple things, and they kind of contradict each other, but they work together at the same time. So at the end of the day, I would say most of us can agree what we want to do with our lives, or a big part of what we want to do, is we want to help people. But the thing is, you can't help others if you don't help yourself, and you don't take the time to heal within yourself first. And it's like, no one's ever going to be perfect, so it's not like you become perfect and then you get to help other people. But it's like, you got to make sure you're doing the work within yourself, not necessarily on yourself. I like to say within yourself first, so then you can best help people, because you can't fill others' cup when your own cup is empty. But then at the same time, it's not going to be all about you until it's all about everyone else. So it's kind of that balance of being able to take care of yourself and work within yourself, but also serve others to help build yourself more. And that's something they teach you in sobriety, which I think is just a great life lesson for anyone. Any time that I'm having an off day, or I just don't feel good, my emotions are high, I go out and I get out of myself when I serve others, and that helps me grow, because I'm doing something for someone else. Like, it's so much more fulfilling to do that and then work within yourself through it than to just only focus on you. So like I said, they kind of work together, but they also contradict themselves at the same time. So it's take that and figure out what it means for you.
That's awesome. Thank you. I love that you focus and dedicate a lot of your life in terms of helping others and putting them first, because it's definitely so important. But it's obviously the most important to learn to love yourself, be comfortable with yourself, and really have a good relationship with yourself first before you actively go out and help others. And before I ask my last question, I'll have all of the links towards Carly's Instagram so you can follow her. You can see her on her development for her bodybuilding show, as well as reaching out if you want to seek out coaching from her and just to see more of her story and really learn more about what she's doing throughout her life today. So I just want to obviously thank you for being on here today. And my last question that I like to ask my guests is, if you were to be writing a chapter in your overall life book, and this chapter is your present moment right now, whether it's just this year, 2019, what would your chapter be called and why?
Oh, what would my chapter be called? I don't know. I don't want to come up with something like super cliche.
Or just
um,
a theme or a topic that you've been able to uncover throughout this year.
I would say spiritual growth.
Spiritual.
Definitely. This is the first year that I've really begun to work within myself, because I've always had that healthy lifestyle. I've always done bodybuilding, even in the midst of my addiction. But I really started to work within myself and within my spiritual side of life, whether that be religious or just within yourself, however you decide to portray that within your own life. And that's when I've noticed the most change. You know, it's stepping outside of just the healthy eating and the exercise and doing things to work on, you know, my own mindset. As you like to really focus on, that really is the most powerful thing. Because it's like, it doesn't matter how much work you do on your physical body, if you don't fix the stuff going on in your head, you're never going to live the life that you really are meant to. You're never going to live up to your fullest potential. So spiritual growth is definitely where I'm at right now, and that's where I plan to stay.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I appreciate you coming on today, Carly. It was such a pleasure interviewing you, and it's going to be great to see your next steps that you do within your future. I can't wait for everybody to follow you and see your growth throughout this. So I'd love to thank you for being on for episode number 7 for the Mental Insights podcast. And this is your host, Brendan Catuli, and we'll have all the links to Carly's social media and contact information, as well as mine, so you can hear this podcast and share it with all of your friends and family members that want to hear this conversation. So thank you again, Carly.
Thank you very much, Brendan. I appreciate it.
Of course, of course. It was a great interview, and I'll let you know when it's ready to go and posted, and I'll send you all the links and so forth for you if you want to share it as well.
Yeah, sounds perfect. Sounds
Wonderful.
perfect. Thank you.